Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to start a new book. Okay, it is called Becoming a Person of Influence. I know this is something that I have a hard time with. Like, I tell myself that I don't have any influence. I tell myself that no one listens to me. Like, it's something I struggle with. But in reality, a lot of people listen to me. And sometimes I don't see it. And the funny thing is it's the confidence in yourself that help you get influence. Like that's one of the things. So this book is going to help us know how to become more influential, and I'm so excited to start. Um, I'm going to do it by chapter. These are a little bit longer chapters than past books, so I'm just going to kind of preview it for you. Um, I love this because there's 10 chapters, and each one it spells out influence. You see that? How cool is that? So it's a really good way to remember. So there's 10 of them. Oh, sorry, it's influencer. It spells out influencer. And so it'll just be 10 days of reading, but it might take a little bit longer each day. So yeah, that's how it's gonna go. So today we're gonna do chapter 1, which is a person of influence has I for integrity with people. All right. And actually today, sorry, we're going to do the preface and the introduction today. And then tomorrow we will read chapter 1. So that is what we're going to do. Let me just look real quick. Sometimes the introduction is even longer than chapters. Let me just look. It's about the same. Okay. Here we go. Introduction day. All right. Here's the preface. When the two of us met a few years ago, so this is not just by John Maxwell, it's by Jim Dornan as well. All right. When the two of us met a few years ago, we sensed instantly that there was great chemistry between us, almost like that of brothers. We had so much in common, despite having very different backgrounds. Jim has spent the last 30 years in the business environment teaching people how to become successful. In the process, he built a worldwide business organization. On the other hand, John has spent the last 28 years working in a nonprofit environment as a pastor, denominational executive, and motivational speaker. He is recognized as one of the top executives and Sorry. He is recognized as one of the top equippers in the United States in leadership and personal growth development. What we have in common is an understanding of people and of the positive impact that that one person's life can have on others. And it all boils down to one idea: influence. We know the power of influence and we want to share it with you. So please join us and continue reading. We're going to give you many of our insights, tell some entertaining and informative stories, and share dynamite principles that have the power to change your life and the lives of all the people you can influence. All right, acknowledgements. Let's get back. All right, introduction. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you dream about being a famous actor or singer? How about President of the United States? Maybe you wanted to become an Olympic athlete or one of the wealthiest people in the world. We all have dreams and ambitions. Undoubtedly, you've accomplished some of yours. But no matter how successful you are now, you still have dreams and goals that are waiting to be fulfilled. And our desire is to help you realize the dreams, to help you realize your potential. Let's start by doing a little experiment. Take a look at the following list of people. It's quite a diverse group, but they all have one thing in common. See if you can figure out what it is. John Grisham, George Gallup, Robert E. Lee, Dennis Rodman, James Dobson, Dan Rather, Madonna, Hideo Nomo, Jerry and Patty Beaumont, Rich DeVos, Mother Teresa, Beth Myers, Pablo Picasso, Adolf Hitler, Tiger Woods, Anthony Bonacorsi, Alanis Morissette, Glenn Leatherwood, Bill Clinton, John Wesley, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Influence doesn't come to us instantaneously, it grows by stages. That's the little quote it has. There's one on every page. Have you figured it out yet? What do they have in common? It certainly isn't their professions. The names have been drawn from lists of writers and statesmen, sports figures and artists, evangelists and dictators, actors and business professionals, both men and women are included. Some are single and others are married. They are of various ages, and many ethnic groups and nationalities are represented. Some of the people are famous, and you probably recognize their names, but you have undoubtedly never heard of others. So, what's the key? What do they all have in common? The answer is that every one of them is a person of influence. Everyone has influence. We created this list almost at random, selecting well known people as well as ones from our lives. You could just as easily do the same thing. We did it to make a point. Everyone is an influencer of other people. It doesn't matter who you are or what your occupation is. A politician, such as the President of the United States, has tremendous influence on hundreds of millions of people, not only in his own country, but around the globe. And entertainers, such as Madonna and Arnold Schwarzenegger, often influence an entire generation of people in one or more cultures. A teacher, such as Glenn Leatherwood, who instructed John and hundreds of other boys in Sunday school, touches the lives of his own students and also indirectly influences all the people those boys grow up to influence. But you don't have to be in a high profile occupation to be a person of influence. In fact, if your life in any way connects with other people, you are an influencer. Everything you do at home, at church, in your job, or on the ball field has an impact on the lives of other people. American poet philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Every man is a hero and an oracle to somebody, and to that person, whatever he says has an enhanced value." If your desire is to be successful or to make a positive impact on your world, you need to become a person of influence. Without influence, there is no success. For example, if you're a salesperson wanting to sell more of your product, you need to be able to influence your customers. If you're a manager, your success depends on your ability to influence your employees. If you're a coach, you can build a winning team only by influencing your players. If you're a pastor, your ability to reach people and grow your church depends on your influence with your congregation. If you want to raise a strong, healthy family, you have to be able to influence your children positively. No matter what your goals are in life or what you want to accomplish, you can achieve them faster. You can be more effective, and the contribution you make can be longer lasting if you learn how to become a person of influence. And then here's a quote on the page. If your life, I think I already read it though. If your life in any way connects with other people, you are an influencer. Good to repeat. An amusing story about the impact of influence comes from the administration of President Calvin Coolidge. An overnight guest at the White House was having breakfast with Coolidge one morning, and he wanted to make a good impression on the president. He noticed that Coolidge, having been served his coffee, took the coffee cup, poured some of its contents into a deep saucer, and leisurely added a little bit of sugar and cream. Not wanting to breach any rules of etiquette, the visitor followed the commander in chief's lead. He poured some of his coffee into a saucer and added sugar and cream. Then he waited for the president's next move. He was horrified to see him place the saucer on the floor for the cat. No one reported what the visitor did next. Your influence is not equal with all people. Influence is a curious thing. Even though we have an impact on nearly everyone around us, our level of influence is not the same with everyone. To see this principle in action, try ordering around your best friend's dog the next time you visit him. You may not have thought much about it, but you probably know instinctively which people you have great influence with and which ones you don't. For example, think of 4 or 5 people you work with. When you present an idea to them or make a suggestion, do they all respond in the same way? Of course not. One person may think all your ideas are inspired. Another may view everything you say with skepticism. No doubt you can identify which one you have the influence with. Yet that same skeptical person may love every single idea presented by your boss or one of your colleagues. That just shows your influence with her may not be as strong as that of someone else. We get some music with our book club today. I don't know if you can hear that. Once you start paying closer attention to people's responses to yourself and others, you'll see that people respond to one another according to their level of influence. And you'll quickly recognize how much influence you have with various people in your life. You may even notice that your influence is on many different levels in your household. If you're married and have 2 or more children, think about how they interact with you. One child may respond especially well to you, while another does better with your spouse. It's a matter of which parent has the greater influence with the child. So true. Stages of influence and their impact. If you've read John's Developing the Leader Within You, anyone read that? I don't think I have yet. Then you probably remember the description of the 5 levels of leadership contained in chapter 1. Visually, it looks like this. So it's 5 P's: personhood, people development, production, permission, position. Leadership, which is a specific application of influence, is at its lowest level when it is based on position only. Sorry, it starts at position. I read it backwards. So you start at the bottom and go up. Position, permission, production, people development, personhood. It grows and goes to a higher level as you develop relationships with others. That's when they give you permission to lead beyond the limits of your job description. As you and your followers become more productive together in your work, then your leadership can go to level 3. And when you begin to develop people and help them reach their potential, your leadership moves up to level 4. Only a few people reach level 5 because it requires a person to spend a lifetime developing others to their highest potential. Influence functions in a similar way. It doesn't come to us instantaneously. Instead, it grows by stages. Visually, it looks something like this. We've got some M's. So model, motivate, mentor, and multiply. Level 1, modeling. People are first influenced by what they see. If you have children, then you've probably observed this. No matter what you tell your children to do, their natural inclination is to follow what they see you doing. Like eating on the couch. Sometimes I eat on the couch. And they're always like, why do you tell us not to eat on the couch? For most people, if they perceive that you are positive and trustworthy and have admirable qualities, then they will seek you as an influencer in their lives. And the better they get to know you, the greater your credibility will be and the higher your influence can become if they like what they see. When you meet people who don't know you, at first you have no influence with them at all. If someone they trust introduces you to them and gives you an endorsement, then you can temporarily borrow some of that person's influence. Sorry, just a second. Sorry, that music was distracting me. I was like, turn it down. Okay. If someone they trust introduces you to them and gives you an endorsement, then you can temporarily borrow some of that person's influence. So we call it third-party validation. They will assume that you are credible until they get to know you. But as soon as they have some time to observe you, you either build or bust that influence by your actions. One interesting exception to this modeling process occurs in the case of celebrities. Because of their preoccupation with television, movies, and the media, many people are strongly influenced by others that they have never met. More often than not, they are influenced not by the actual individual, but by the image of that person. And that image may not be an accurate representation of that actress, politician, sports figure, or entertainer. Nonetheless, they admire that person and are influenced by the actions and attitudes they believe that person represents. Here's the quote. You can be a model to the masses, but to go to the higher levels of influence, you have to work with individuals. So level 2, motivating. Modeling can be a powerful influence, either positively or negatively. And it's something that can be done even from a distance. But if you want to make a really significant impact on the lives of other people, you have to do it up close. And that brings you to the second level of influence, motivating. You become a motivational influencer when you encourage people and communicate with them on an emotional level. The process does 2 things. Number 1, it creates a bridge between you and them. And number 2, it builds up their confidence and sense of self-worth. When people feel good about you and themselves during the time they're with you, then your level of influence increases significantly. Level 3, mentoring. When you reach the motivational level of influence with others, you can start to see a positive impact in their lives. To increase that impact and make it long-lasting, you have to move up to the next level of influence, which is mentoring. Mentoring is pouring your life into other people and helping them reach their potential. The power of mentoring is so strong that you can actually see the lives of the persons you are influencing change before your eyes. As you give of yourself, helping them overcome obstacles in their lives and showing them how to grow personally and professionally, you help them achieve a whole new level of living. You can truly make a difference in their lives. Number four, level four is multiplying. The highest level of influence you can have in others' lives is the multiplication level. As a multiplying influencer, you help people you're influencing to become positive influencers in the lives of others and pass on not only what they have received from you, but also what they have learned and gleaned on their own. Few people ever make it to the fourth level of influence, but everyone has the potential to do so. It takes unselfishness, generosity, and commitment. It also takes time. In order to move up a level in influence with people, you have to give them more individual attention. You can be a model to the masses, but to go to the higher levels of influence, you have to work with individuals. Bill Westifer, a friend of John's who formerly worked at Skyline Church in San Diego, observed, "There are people whose feelings and well being are within my influence. I will never escape that fact." That's a good concept for all of us to remember. If you lead many people or have a high profile position, you have a greater responsibility because of your increased influence. What you say, and more important, what you do, is a model for those who follow you. Their actions will reflect your influence. Your influence is either positive or negative. Now that you recognize your influence with others, you must think about how you are going to use it. You probably noticed that professional basketball player Dennis Rodman was on the list of influencers at the beginning of this introduction. Many times we've heard Dennis Rodman say that he doesn't want to be a role model, he just wants to be himself. Dennis doesn't understand or refuses to acknowledge that he already is a role model. It's not something he can decline. He is an example to everyone in his family, his neighbors, and the people at the neighborhood store where he shops. And because of the profession he has chosen, he is a role model to millions of others, to more people than he would be if he had chosen to be, for example, an auto mechanic. He's influencing others, and he has made a choice concerning the kind of influence he is having. Here's a little quote of the page. Even if you've had a negative effect on others in the past, you can turn that around and make your impact a positive one. Baseball legend Jackie Robinson noted, "A life isn't significant except for its impact on other lives." Robinson's impact on people in the United States has been incredible. In the mid 1940s, he became the first African American athlete to play Major League Baseball despite prejudice, racial taunts, abuse, and death threats. And he did it with character and dignity. Brad Herzog, author of the Sports 100, has identified Robinson as the most influential person in American sports history. First, there are those who changed the way the games were played. Then there are the men and women whose presence and performance forever altered the sporting scene in a fundamental manner. And finally, there are the handful of sports figures whose influence transcended the playing fields and impacted American culture. Robinson, to a greater extent than anyone else, was all three types in one. Martin Luther King Jr., one of the most influential Americans of the 20th century, acknowledged the positive impact Jackie Robinson made on his life and the cause for which he fought. To African American baseball pioneer Don Newcomb, King said, "You'll never know what you and Jackie and Roy Campanella did to make it possible to do my job." Most of the time, we recognize the influence we have on those who are closest to us in our lives, for good or ill. But sometimes we overlook the impact we can have on people around us. The anonymous author of this poem probably had that in mind when he wrote, "My life shall touch a dozen lives before this day is done. Leave countless marks for good or ill ere sets the evening sun. This is the wish I always wish, the prayer I always pray. Lord, may my life help other lives it touches by the way." As you interact with your family, your coworkers, and the clerk at the store today, recognize that your life touches many other lives. That just makes me think of that song, "Each Life That Touches," you know the hymn? "Each life that touches mine for good," or something like that. Such a good song. You can make the few moments that you interact with a store clerk and bank teller a miserable experience, or you can get them to smile and make their day. The choice is yours. Positive influencers add value to other people. As you move up to the higher levels of influence and become an active influencer, you can begin to have a positive influence on people and add value to their lives. That's true for any positive influencer. The babysitter who reads to a child encourages him to love books and helps him become a lifelong learner. The teacher who puts his faith, confidence, and love in a little girl helps her feel valued and good about herself. The boss who delegates to her employees and gives them authority as well as responsibility enlarges their horizons and empowers them to become better workers and people. The parents who know how and when to give their children grace help them to stay open and communicative even during their teenage years. All of these people add lasting value to the lives of other people. We don't know what kind of influence you have on others today as you read this book. Your actions may touch the lives of thousands of people, or you may influence two or three coworkers and family members. The number of people is not what's most important. The crucial thing to remember is that your level of influence is not static. Even if you've had a negative effect on others in the past, you can turn that around and make your impact a positive one. And if your level of influence has been relatively low up to now, you can increase it and become a person of influence who helps others. In fact, that's what this book is all about. We want to help you become a person of high influence, no matter what stage of life you're in or what you do for a living. You can have an incredibly positive impact on the lives of others. You can add tremendous value to their lives. Who is on the influence list? Everyone could sit down and make a list of people who have added value to his or her life. We mentioned that the list at the beginning of this introduction contains the names of some people who have influenced us. Some of the names are big. For example, John considers 18th century evangelist John Wesley to be a significant influence on his life and career. Wesley was a Wesley was a dynamic leader, preacher, and social critic. During his lifetime, he turned the Christian church in England and America upside down, and his thoughts and teachings continue to influence the way churches function and Christians believe even today. John considers Wesley to be the greatest person to have lived since the Apostle Paul. Other people named on that list are not well known, but that in no way lessens their level of influence. For example, Jerry and Patty Beaumont had a profound impact on the lives of Jim and his wife Nancy. Here's their story. Nancy and I first met Jerry and Patty almost 25 years ago when Nancy and Patty were both pregnant. The Beaumonts were a classy couple, really sharp and confident. We were attracted to them immediately because it seemed that they really had their lives together, and we observed that they were living out their strong spiritual convictions with integrity and consistency. Nancy met Patty one day while they were in the obstetrician's waiting room. They hit it off instantly and began to build a relationship. We had no idea how much their friendship was going to mean to us just a few months later when our lives got turned upside down. Nancy and I think back on those days now as a good time in our lives. Our daughter Heather was 5 years old and we were really enjoying her. We were also just beginning to build our business. It was taking a lot of time and energy to get it going, but it was fun. We were beginning to see that all our work was going to pay off in the future. When Nancy told me that she was pregnant, I was ecstatic. It meant our little family was about to grow, and we hoped our second child would be a boy. After 9 months of routine pregnancy, Nancy gave birth to our first son, Eric. At first, everything appeared to be normal, but a few hours later, the doctor discovered that Eric had been born with some very serious physical problems. His back was open, and his spinal cord had not formed properly. They told us that he had a condition called spina bifida. To make things worse, his spinal fluid had gotten infected during the delivery, so he was suffering from severe systemic meningitis. Our whole life seemed to be thrown into chaos. After Nancy's hours of labor, we were exhausted and confused. They told us Eric needed brain surgery, and we had to make a decision right then. Without it, he didn't stand a chance. Even with it, things didn't look good. We cried as they prepared to take our little boy, only a few hours old, and transport him to Children's Hospital for emergency brain surgery. All we could do was pray that he would make it. We waited for hours, but the doctors finally came out and told us Eric was going to live. We were shaken when we saw him after the surgery. We wondered how someone so small could have so many wires attached to him. The opening in his back was closed, but we could see that they had surgically implanted a shunt tube in his brain to drain off excess spinal fluid and relieve the pressure. The first year of Eric's life was a blur for us as he repeatedly entered Children's Hospital. In the first 9 months, he underwent 11 more surgeries. 3 of those operations came in one weekend. Things were happening so fast that we were overwhelmed and we couldn't even comprehend what we might have to face in the future. While we were trying to survive the midnight trips to the hospital and hold up under the pain and fear we had for Eric, guess who came alongside us and helped us survive each day as it came? Jerry and Patty Beaumont. They had come to the hospital that first day of Eric's life and given us comfort and encouragement while he was in the operating room. They brought food for us and sat with Nancy and me in hospital waiting rooms, and all the while they shared their incredible faith with us. Most important, they helped us to believe that God had a special plan for Eric and us. You know, Patty told Nancy one day, you and Jim can make Eric's problems the center of everything you do, or you can use them as a launching pad for a whole new way of looking at life. It was then that we turned a corner in our lives. We began looking beyond our circumstances and saw that there was a bigger picture. We realized God had a plan for us as well as Eric, and our faith gave us strength and peace. The Beaumonts had helped us consider and answer some of life's most important questions. From that day on, our entire attitudes changed and we had great hope. That was more than 2 decades ago. Jim and Nancy lost touch with the Beaumonts, though they have since tried to find them. Now Eric has grown up and gets around pretty well in his electric wheelchair despite having experienced a stroke during one of his surgeries. He is a constant source of joy, inspiration, and humor for the Dornan family. And though their contact with Jerry and Patty Beaumont lasted only about a year, Jim and Nancy recognized the tremendous value they added to them and still consider them to be two of the greatest influencers in their lives. Today, Jim and Nancy are people of influence. Their business has expanded into more than 26 countries around the world, from Eastern Europe to the Pacific, from Brazil and Argentina to mainland China. Through seminars, tapes, and videos, they impact hundreds of thousands of individuals and families each year. And their business continues to grow, but more important to them, they are sharing their strong values and faith with the people they influence. They are doing all they can to add value to the life of everyone they touch. Recently, John was talking to Larry Dobbs. He's the president and publisher of the Dobbs Publishing Group, which produces magazines such as Mustang Monthly, Corvette Fever, and Muscle Car Review. They talked about the subject of influence, and Larry shared a little bit of his story. John, my daddy was a sharecropper, so he never had much. When he died, the only money he left was $1. But he gave me so much more than that. He passed on his values to me. Then Larry said something very insightful. The only inheritance that a man will leave that has eternal value is his influence. You don't know exactly what your dream is in life or what kind of legacy you want to leave, but if you want to make an impact, you will have to become a man or woman capable of influencing others. There is no other way of effectively touching people's lives. And if you become a person of influence, then maybe someday when other people write down the names of those who made a difference in their lives, your name just might be on the list. That's the introduction, you guys. All right, so tomorrow we'll do chapter 1. A person of influence has integrity with people. And this goes under so they have like the four M's. So this is part of the model. All right, thanks for joining me.